Hey YouTubers, Electric Adventures here with the next episode of Electric Adventures The Games, and we're on program pack 6, and the next title, having a look, is called Sea Diver. Now, as usual with a lot of mobile games, it takes inspiration from other games. I'm not 100% sure where I got the inspiration. It probably was, there is an Atari 2600 game. So we run it up, we get our little temporary logo while we load our sprites. We have a C section, counters up top, and press trigger to begin. Now this, I believe, uses my little machine code routine to move quite a few objects. Okay, so I'm C effect. I'm the diver up on the top left, and I need to dive, grab the gold, and go back up. And I need to swim to the platform too. You've got no control over your ascent and descent. So in a way, it's a little bit of an evolution of the chicken game. And you notice it's definitely getting faster. Oh god alive. And now it's gotten really fast, and we're zooming through the lives. Oh. 2100. Oh, it resets and goes around again. So it's actually quite a fun game, but my word, does that get hard fast. So, alright, I shall get set up and we can have a look at the source code together. Okay, back set up. Let's see how long the program is first. I don't see this one being too long. Let's have a look. There we go. 41 lines long. And I already know that last line, 410, that's our little machine code loader. And that line 400 is probably some positioning information. But we'll start from the start. So 10 to 50. Oops. Get carried away with that. Oh no, too much. So line 10, our beep to clear our sound, clear a bit of variable space, set our colour, screen mode, to make all our variables integers, set our random function, and seed it, and open our handle to the graphics screen. Line 20 clears a bit of memory again, but this is for the specifically for the machine code routine. So the machine code routine will be at the address D800, which will work on, so that's high in memory, and it'll work on a Spectravideo 318 as well as MSX machine. Set some more colours, sets our screen mode again, sets our integers again, sort of like I've repeated ourselves a little bit. I've left some gaps there for obviously some variables like C and S that we're going to use floating point with, and actually specifically declare them as the C and S is that type. We could define the random function twice. That's interesting. And we define our user function at that address. Line 130, restore our data to the start. Set a point, colour, print Sea Diver on the screen, draw a box around it, set the high score, then read in our 6 sprite shapes, so 6 sprite shapes for this one. Line 140, we go and grab our those 5 values into that C. We'll have a look at what that does later, and then we get our 26 values, which is our machine code function. Okay, and we set the next 2 pokes clear out a hook for for running that machine code. That was too much. Nah, sorry. Keyboard's got me again. Try again. 90. Just. Okay, could we clear out? No, we haven't quite got that line. Try again. Need to be able to see that. Okay, we clear out our sprite shapes and also clear out the data buffer. So basically, for each of the sprites, they have a velocity in the machine code routine. So that loop is going through each of the 32 sprites and making sure they're not on the screen and poking the address that we've got set aside for their velocity. Then we draw our box, which is probably our C. Set some points, print our score and high score and our lives. Line 160, we put our press trigger to begin on the screen and we wait for the trigger to be pressed. Otherwise we loop around. Funnily enough, we're redrawing that press trigger to begin all the time. Else we rub it out, so put some C back. Line 170, set our score, our lives, our level, whatever G is. We put a sprite, I reckon that's the ship, on the bottom of the C at a random spot. We draw some boxes around a couple of things there, and that's probably drawing our platform that we're standing on, I reckon. And goes up to 280, probably set some stuff up. Line 180 sets our initial X and Y. BB is probably a movement parameter. Puts our sprite on the screen. Now we set up the random position of each of the C creatures. So for A equals 2 to 6, put those sprites on the screen at random positions. And notice the poke in the middle there that sets that memory address, which is setting based on the level, the speed and the direction, I suppose, the speed of the C creature. We call it a couple of subroutines, so quite a big use of subroutines in this one. Okay, so line 190, we get a random value. We turn our sprite collision detection on. We're having a look at the position of a sprite. Okay, interesting. I'll figure out what that is later. Else we put a sprite on the screen. Maybe that's putting our gold on the screen. Line 100 is where we call the machine code routine to. So we're not actually doing this one on a timer. We're actually calling it inside our loop. Line 110. We're basically, I'd say BB, when we're 0, we're actually sitting up on the platform and when we're looking for the trigger to be pressed. Otherwise, and so if the trigger's not pressed, we have a little delay, then we go to 270, so else trigger's pressed. Then we go to the next line. If we're diving and it goes in x equals x plus 2, so it moves our x position by 2 and it decreases our y. It's checking our y position there. Okay, so and if our y is less than 46, then B, we're going to the next mode. So this BB is sort of like our movement mode. So if BB equals 2, we're still increasing x and we're increasing y rather than decreasing it. Right, so the BB equals 1 was our slight jump up and to the right. So BB2, we're still doing our leap off the platform. And so that first one will make us jump until we've jumped up in the air a little bit. And now we're in BB2, we're waiting until we've dropped down a particular thing, which is into the water. And then we go into mode 3. So if we're not into mode 3, we skip the next line. Otherwise, we are dropping down. We use vpoke and we look at the stick to see whether we want to move left and right. and that's what that code is doing there. If our Y position is larger than 140, I take it we're past all of the sea creatures, and that's our safe area down the bottom. And we turn the sprite collision detection off. Obviously, the sprite collision detection, if any of you get any collisions, it basically means the player's dead. There's not going to be any checking things. So once we're larger than 178, we go into mode 4. Right, in mode 4 we're seeing if our player is in the same position as the gold block. And if it is, we increase our score, do a couple of go subs there to display our score and things, I would say. Oops. So sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so line 190 is normal movement. So we're just moving left and right again. And line 210 is mode 5, and otherwise, so it's not that, go to 250, we skip this section, otherwise we're going up the screen. And we also detect our stick movement there. And that basically does that over those two lines. Let's have a look. So now we're seeing whether we're back into the danger zone. We turn the sprite collision detection back on. And we check to see whether we've reached the top surface, which is obviously mode 6. So line 250 is where we deal with mode 6, which is obviously on the surface, and we allow the player to move left and right, and seeing whether we have made it all the way to the left back onto the platform. We get 200 points when we do that, and our level goes up by 1 every time we do it. Okay, line 270 is obviously the end of our main loop, so we go back around again and we're starting our subroutine. So line 280, Prince writes a box and then writes the score in that position. Line 290 plays a sound, looks fairly complicated sound. It's using the value clock, by the way. So it's getting the current clock, so it's doing almost like a random sound value. We'd have to look back at the previous ones to see which ones was calling that. Line 310 is another subroutine. This prints the lives on the screen using a special screen character again. Line 320 turns the sprite off, so this would possibly be our collision detection routine. As I said earlier, it's not checking what we're hitting. It basically means if two sprites have collided, we've lost a life. So that's why we had that other code to make sure the sprite collision detection was turned off when we're in sections where we could hit other things like the ship at the bottom of the gold bar. So we're just assuming if the sprite interrupt goes off, that we're colliding with an enemy. So we reduce our lives, we display our lives. If our lives are larger than 0, we can go back to 80, reset, and keep going. Otherwise it's game over. We check if our score has gone over our high score, update the high score and put top score. Line 330, we have a big delay while that's on screen. We clear our sound buffer and go back to our title screen. And then line 340 is the first line of our sprite data. So that's probably our man. Then we've got a few sea creatures, and line 390, all the Fs, that's a completely filled in 8x8 block. That would be our block of gold. So as you can see, there's not a lot of code, but it actually has quite entertaining gameplay, and another novel use of that machine code routine as well. And yeah, it ends up being quite a nice game. So this pack actually contains some very nice playable games. Alright, I'm Electric Adventures. Thanks to all my subscribers, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.